Hello and welcome to the Grumpy Sound Guy Show. This week we are going to circle back around because it's the subject that never wants to go away. And we're going to once again talk about volume restrictions, loud stage volume. I have 2 or 3 different long form videos from a year or so ago already on the channel, but you guys keep asking me to talk about this. I have some updated alarming, criteria that came from some friends that they were giving from a municipality that is shocking. You do not want to miss the details of that situation. Yeah, I can't even believe the nerve of these people now. But yeah, today's topic is just going to be, trying to keep the volume under control, man. Silent stages. We'll probably touch on some in-ear monitor stuff. And we're going to talk a lot about some of these unreasonable requests that are now starting to pour in from all over the world, not just here in the States. I got guys in Canada, Australia, England, Ireland, all the English-speaking countries, South Africa, that are telling me they're dealing with all the same stuff even in their backyard. So you do not want to miss a second of today's show. It's going to be power-packed. Stick around. Hey guys, if I could just have a moment of your time to talk to you about this channel. 49.8% of you guys watching this right now is not subscribed to this channel. Will you please hit that subscription button? It doesn't cost anything to subscribe to the channel on the public side here. And then that gives us tools and resources and for my marketing team to be able to do what we need to do to get this content out to people who really enjoy this sort of thing. The other thing is, if you're super digging this and you'd like a deeper look into my world, then subscribe to the paid side of the YouTube channel. You can join for about the cost of a cup of coffee a month, and then I do vlogs over there. I post content that never goes public, and I let you into my world. I let you into the CLP audio world, and I let you see what our day-to-day life looks like. Love you guys. Thank you for the support. Hey guys, welcome back. So let's get all the obvious stuff out of the way. All the things that the dead horse that we have just beat to death. And that is, if your band is loud on stage, you are really, unless you're outside in an open air, situation with plenty of room in front of you. Maybe you're doing an outdoor festival or something like that. A lot of room for error in that situation. Drummers can really play freely in that situation. But the people that I'm talking to are the people that are working in churches and they're working in indoor rooms that are volume sensitive, which is most of the rooms that we're in. I mix 2 or 3 rooms out of the probably 30 or 40 different venues that I mix that just plow people with volume. They just don't care. The other, like 28 clubs, all have issue with volume. They're smaller dock bars or they're small sports clubs or something like that. I know some clubs have moved the band, especially this summer, have moved the bands outside under a pavilion, like a lot of the animal clubs, to try and combat this issue of volume, because it's a lot less issue when you're outside, even under a pavilion. So I have seen that. If you're too loud on stage, dude, you're just robbing your front of house engineer from being able to make you sound super sick out front. That's the bottom line, dude. That's the whole thing in a nutshell right there. If you're a drummer who's, trying to bash out like Lars Ulrich on Ride the Lightning, you're probably going to ruin your singer's, vocal mix. I know a singer buddy of mine who always says a loud drummer is just, or when a drummer plays loud, he's telling the singer to go screw himself. That's his statement. When a drummer chooses to play super loud, he's telling the singer to go screw himself, because it makes it 10 times as hard for the singer to really hear himself on stage, and for the front of house guy to get him where he wants him to be. Especially in our cover band scene, let's be honest, we got some singers that aren't exactly strong, so they're pulling back a lot, especially since the revolution of in-ear monitors, as they can crank their vocal up super loud on their monitor and then turn into a lazy singer at the mic. And that's an issue, you know, and I addressed that not long ago, actually, I think in maybe one of the shorts. But yeah, dude, you know, if you're so loud here that when you whisper into the mic, it's killing you, you're probably not projecting enough to help your front of house guy to get you good in the house. You still need to project. Not to mention, when you run your mic that hot in your ears, you're going to pick up a ton of stage volume. You know, especially if you're using like an older SM58 or something like that that has a lot of proximity effect and that sort of thing. A lot of the older Sennheisers, like the 835s and 845s and stuff like that. The newer mics have a tighter pattern. The SE Electronics V7 has a tight pattern. The Nexodyne stuff has a tight pattern. Some of the KSM stuff, I think the 8 has a pretty tight pattern. The 945 has a tighter pattern, the Sennheiser. So, I mean, they're getting it, man. They're trying to get maximum gain before feedback and the absolute most stage volume rejection they can build into the microphone. So the microphone companies are working with you to help you get where you need to be in a situation where you have a lot of stage volume. If you're still running wedge monitors and those things are 100 or 110 dB on stage because you're just used to playing in a concrete room at rehearsal where everything's on 11, dude, you know, my band is getting ready. I'm actually in the process. I'm just let the cat out of the bag. We've been trying to keep it a secret, but oh well, I am secretly, not so secret now, putting a band together with some friends of mine, and we have our first rehearsal tomorrow night. And it's going to be a silent rehearsal. We're all going to be on ears. We're all going to be direct. I am going to be playing acoustic drums, but with like Remo hot rod sticks and silent sticks. You know, we're not going to be pumping out a bunch of volume at rehearsal. And I think bands that rehearse with in-ear monitors do much better when they perform with in-ear monitors. You know, I think you're making a mistake if you're rehearsing with wedges and performing with ears. You should be rehearsing with the same ear rig that you perform with, so you can work the bugs out of it, so you can really dial it in the way you want it, and yeah, all that kind of stuff. So those are all the super obvious stuff. If you're loud on stage, you're jacking with your front of house mix. And I mean, I kind of went at drummers with that right out of the gate, but I know just as many guitar players and just as many bass players that are just as much of a problem. There's one band that I see occasionally has a steel player in it who's always the loudest guy on stage. And it's like, then the sound guy has to mix around that. You know, he can't mix the whole band and just kind of pick and put everything, have like super sick separation, you know, with everything. It's here, but you can pick out each individual instrument. He has a harder time doing that because now you got this big obnoxious freight train coming down the center of the mix, and you got to kind of mix around it. And it usually forces his front of house volume up, trying to get over that stage volume, so you have a nice, crisp, full, fat, thumping front of house mix. Well, it's hard to do that when you have 110 dB worth of, you know, 6 different wedge mixes on stage. Because then all that stage volume comes out front as mud, because it's not pointed toward the house, it's pointed toward the stage, hence stage monitors. When you go to in-ear monitors, it solves all that. It takes all that out of the equation, you know what I'm saying? And it makes things so much better for your front of house guy. And you guys that complain about low skill sound engineers, there is no better way to guarantee a good front of house mix than to show up as an all-inclusive band with your own monitor mixer, a split snake, everybody on ears, all the guitars are direct. The only thing on stage that is creating stage volume is the drummer. And if the drummer has, if he's a seasoned drummer, he knows how to play to the room. He's not an issue. When you take all that monitor duty away from a guy that's 25 years old and right out of sound school, now he has a really legitimate shot of making you sound good. Because those cats just don't have the skill set, man. They haven't been in this long enough. They come up in a completely different world than most of us Xers have, us Gen Xers, and they don't understand how to ring out monitors and that kind of stuff and everything. And it's just problematic, dude. It just really, really is problematic, So because so many have ignored this, and I had a follower hit me up this week and sent me a link to Bad Brad. He's a guitar player, has a channel here on YouTube, who had done a video about why bands suck now. And he was referring to one of my silent stage videos. And I want to kind of just bounce the tennis ball right back at him and say, yeah, dude, I hear you 100%. We have a thriving music scene here in the Mid-Atlantic. We really do. I could name probably 30 or 40 venues within a 100-mile radius, which is not that far really to travel. You're talking about an hour to an hour and a half, of travel time to play some really cool rooms. We do a lot of rooms all up and down the tributaries of the Chesapeake Bay. The Chesapeake Bay is huge. And we reach even as far as to like Ocean City, Maryland, which from where I'm at in West Virginia is about 3.5 hours. But where all my clients are in Baltimore, they're only an hour and a half, 2 hours, something like that, 2 hours, 15 minutes. So they play those rooms all the time. As I mentioned in the member video earlier today, we just came back from vacation in Ocean City, Maryland. And every time I go down there, it's wonderful because I get to go visit all my clients and don't have to work. I get to visit all my favorite sound guys in Ocean City and don't have to work. So we get to actually, have some fellowship, man, and actually talk and, all that kind of stuff and everything. But, the thing is bands have ignored these volume requests for so long that now it has led us to some really scary mandates that are coming out. I had posted something last week, or maybe 10 days ago. It was right before I went on vacation, about a letterhead from Wolf Trap, which is a local outdoor pavilion type venue that's kind of set right inside of Karenville USA is what I call it. A lot of residential homes and stuff. They have had a volume restriction for decades there. That's no new news. What was disturbing about the letter was some of the measures by which they were threatening to take if you didn't follow the rules. They're talking about shutting you down. They're talking about having dB controlled shutoff switches. So if you go over a certain dB for more than 5 or 7 seconds, it shuts front of house off. And we all know what that does to gear. And I had some guys in that thread in the comments section say that they had dealt with that there and swore they'd never go back because it was destroying gear. I am not under the impression that that's how it is now there, but I think at one time that was part of the equation. The other thing was they will come and take over your mix. They have a house union crew there, which is wonderful, by the way. This is a great venue. I love the venue. I've been there many times and seen concerts. I know people who work there. I don't have any per se issue with what they're trying to do. And I understand why they're doing what they're doing because they have residential communities all around them. Now, they're not doing metal bands there. They do a lot of like yacht rock and like I seen Yes there with the Philharmonic. I think I seen Government Mule and Jason Bonham's Led Zeppelin experience there not long ago. They do a lot of jazz stuff. They do some orchestra stuff. I think Robert Plant and Alison Krauss there. So they're kind of some of the more mellow type of music. They're not doing, Mudvayne and Slayer, and that sort of thing, or Cannibal Corpse, So that music in and of itself lends it to being a little more laid back, a little more subdued. But to get pushed out of the way by a venue guy and lose control of your band's mix, that's a big deal, dude. That's kind of scary, I was shocked to read that. And then they had another clause that you couldn't record your own band without written permission from the venue. That seems kind of alarming to me. I don't know why. Like if I'm working for XYZ band and, I record every performance because the band wants that to be able to critique themselves. Maybe they want to put together a live album over the length of a tour. You'd be surprised how many bands do that. A lot of bands will record every show, and then when the tour is over, say they've been out for 6 months, and they have 30 shows to choose from audio, they'll go in and pick and choose the real magical moments from this performance, that performance. Steve Vai did that, I think, on the Alter Zone, album, where he recorded it all live, but each song was in a different venue. So that is not out of the ordinary. And that sound engineer is getting paid as part of his job to do that. Now, for the venue to step in and say, no, you can't do that without our written consent, I don't know, hit me up in the comments section. What do you think about that? I had some guys say that they didn't think it was unreasonable, that you just submit a letter saying this is what we're going to do. This is how we usually do business. They approve it. It's not that big a deal, blah, blah, blah. And then I had other guys, and these are touring guys that are leaving these comments, who said, no one's going to tell me what I can do with my band. The venue doesn't write my check. The band does. I'm working for the band. And whatever the band wants is what the band's going to get, regardless of what the venue says. So there was some confrontational stuff going on that way. I understand both sides of the argument. I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't mix at Wolf Trap. I go there to enjoy concerts on my downtime. I love the place. I have heard nothing but rave reviews about the crew there. It's a wonderful place to work at, from what I understand. I just felt like some of the responses to violating those, because everybody's going to peak up over that. I think their limit was 95 dBA, which is, I think, okay. I mean, I always want to be like around 97 to 102. That's usually where I float, in that ballpark. So to get to 95 in my world, I feel that's a little low. But I've also spent years in churches where it was 91 dB. And we didn't have any problem with that. You got to know how to frequency carve. You can't muscle your way through, getting your mix correct. You got to EQ it to get things where they need to be. And I can say that attributes a lot to my skill level in frequency carving. I have a video from about a year and a half ago called Frequency Carving. If you go back and watch that video, you'll see what I'm talking about there. But because these are reactionary things that have happened because bands refuse to listen. So now let's bring it down to the middle market. I had a buddy of mine right before I went on vacation, sent me a letter from a municipality who was basically saying, here is our volume limit. It was pretty low. If I'm not mistaken, it was, 92 to 94 dBA, something like that, dBA weighed. But the shocking thing was they were telling, in this letter, they were telling the person receiving it, which I'm assuming is a sound engineer or someone in charge of production, that you have no need to mic live drums at their events. I don't really know how to react to that. It's the first time I have seen one of these volume mandate letters come across my desk where they were telling me how to mix now. And they were saying there's absolutely no reason anyone should have to mic acoustic drums at any of our events. And a lot of their events are outdoor events. They are, and again, this letter's coming from a community that I would describe as Karenville, USA. And the letter screamed Karen, in the 19th degree. It really, really honestly did. My buddy is just in complete shock and laughter about the situation. I think he's going to genuinely try to jump through the hoops. I would have immediately just walked away from it and just been like, I'm not interested in working in this for this municipality. I'm not interested. No one, I don't want anyone telling me how to do my job. Okay. You know, I have a very strong reputation. I can't remember the last time I showed up somewhere and somebody told me how to do my job. You know, I've been in some Christian metal situations where the people didn't know me or know who I was, where they came back during sound check and were offering some suggestions. But once they realized that we were kind of thinking the same thing and I was getting them where they wanted to go, that whole conversation lasted like 90 seconds. And they're like, dude, I get where you are. You do your thing, you know? And then they just get out of the way and everybody's happy. But for someone to say, in order to get our events, and these are not people who are paying big money. My buddy is not someone who makes big money at what he does. And he's happy with that. And I'm not judging the guy. I'm happy that he's happy, okay? Let me be very clear about that, because I don't want him to think that I'm talking down to him. I am not. You know, everybody has their place in the scene. Everybody paints the canvas different, and it's all cool, okay? But it would be different if that municipality was coming to the table and offering like really legitimate production rates. But instead, they're offering nickels on the dollar compared to what they could easily afford, because there's no lack of money in that city. And for them to say, you know, you can't mic drums, or we don't want any low frequency energy that can be felt in the chest or felt physically. Yeah, I had another guy reach out to me from out west that said that he had one that said that. It said no low frequency energy that can be physically felt. I am almost speechless over this. Like, I don't even, and this is coming from people who know absolutely nothing about music. And here is the kicker. I'll guarantee you, those same exact people that wrote these letters and wrote these guidelines will go to their local national outdoor pavilion venue that can get 10,000 people in it and yell and scream for their favorite country artist or their favorite yacht rock band and be punching in the chest the whole night, you know, with kick drum and all that kind of stuff, and just rave about how great it sounds. Do you see the hypocrisy in that? Do you see the idiocracy in that? Like, it's okay as long as they're getting their rocks off on the music that they love. But if you're coming to do their community event or their city-sponsored event, they don't want it to be anything like that. They want everything to be nice and soft and polite, and they want people standing 10 feet in front of the speakers to be able to have a normal conversation with the person next to them. I respond to that like this. If that's where you are, you really just need to book acoustic acts, you know, or book bluegrass bands, or, you know, something like that. And I mean, I know a lot of modern bluegrass bands that kick complete ass. They really do. I mean, they kick booty and leave nothing on the table, dude. They kick every apple cart over, and they're a ton of fun to mix. They're a ton of fun to watch perform, you know. So maybe even the bluegrass thing wouldn't fit into that, but maybe traditional bluegrass, you know, or classic country, or, you know. So I don't know, man. Like, they have unrealistic expectations when they make statements like, we're going to tell you how to mic the stage. We're going to tell you how to develop your front of house mix. What's next? You're going to tell me what effects to use? You're going to tell me what compression settings to use? You're going to tell me what EQ settings to use? You're already on that EQ line as it is by saying, no low-end energy that can be physically felt. Okay, so now you're asking me to do a high-pass filter on the low end and just eliminate, like, don't even unpack the subs. You know, and here's what makes me sick to my stomach about this whole thing is it's the band that suffers, okay? Because the band wants all those things. You know, the band knows that's where the impact is. That's where the energy is. They can stand up there and be the greatest, most entertaining band in the world. But if you chop them off at the knees and keep them at 90 dB and no sub energy and no mics on the drums, them guys are going to look at you and be like, well, we'll just stay home. Why are we even trying to kid ourselves with doing this? Like, this is just dumb. It's silly. It's absolutely silly. It's ridiculous. No one wants to play under those terms and circumstances because it's ludicrous. And not like the really cool rapper Ludacris. Like, it's just crazy. It doesn't even make a little bit of sense. But this is the result when you have bands who have been asked to turn down for decades and they refuse to do it because they know rock and roll and you don't. And instead of turning down to a reasonable level where they can have the same impact without killing people, now you're being forced to turn down to unreasonable levels where all joy and fun and energy of the performance is now robbed from you. And this is where, and you'll see it in the comments section on this video, this is where you'll see people who say, this is exactly why I quit playing music. This is exactly why I got out of the production business. This is exactly why I quit working for municipalities. This is exactly why I want to go take up basket weaving. I want to do anything but work in the music business anymore because everything I loved about the music business has now been taken from me. And it has. And as much as I hate to say it, it's going to continue to be taken from you. Silent stages are not, it's not going anywhere. It's not. People are catching on to it. We have no amps on stage mandates in most of the casinos now. Some clubs are starting to pick up on that. I've even seen it in our market. You know, no amps on stage. They want everybody to be direct. They'll tolerate acoustic drums as long as the guy will play, you know, at a reasonable level. Some of them aren't even doing that. They're providing an electric drum kit. You play that or don't take the gig. So you want to go, you know, make $100 a night or $250 a night, whatever it is that your band makes, you know, per member. Or do you want to just sit at home on the couch and watch the latest episode of Leanne? It's trying times, ladies and gentlemen. It's trying times. I wish I could report this with a smile on my face and feeling like I have a heart full of hope to where we're going, but I genuinely don't, you know. I'm seeing more and more insanity all the time this way. Now that I've kind of opened this can of worms here in the content that I do, now I'm getting inundated from all over the world with people who are saying, here's the unreasonable stuff that we got to deal with. Here is, like, I get guys in Europe and Australia who are just like, dude, this is old hat for us. Like, we've been dealing with this since like the early 2000s. You know, we've had clubs saying no amps on stage since the early 2000s. That blows my mind, dude. You know, that goes against everything I believe in raping rock and roll. You know what I'm saying? I can't wrap my head around it. I'm thankful that in our area, in the Mid-Atlantic, in the Baltimore, Washington, D.C. area, even up to Philly and as far down as into Richmond, we can put all four of those cities together and call that the middle market. I typically work D.C. and Baltimore, but I'm just thankful that in that scene, we have a thriving scene. We got a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of wineries, a lot of breweries that are doing, you know, new things with live music that's going in a positive direction, but they are volume sensitive, you know, places. You know, they don't want you kicking their brains out all night, you know, especially if they're like got kids there and dogs there and, you know, animals, stuff like that, who get startled easily, or you got more and more kids now that are, you know, sensitivities to high volume. Dude, you know, you gotta find a way to navigate through that. You know, we've had in our area, there's kind of been a paradigm shift. It's gone from like the meat market nightclubs. We still have some of those, don't get me wrong, but they don't dominate the scene like they used to. Now the brewery scene really kind of dominates the scene, the winery scene, street festivals, you know, all that kind of stuff. You know, all the live music that happens at the county fair. The county fair has come a long way, man. Now, some of these county fairs are doing some legit entertainment 4 and 5 nights out of their, you know, 8-night run of the county fair. I mean, I'm blown away. I'm seeing some acoustics and D&B rigs show up at county fairs and stuff like that. Like, wow, dude. And that's awesome. I'm happy for it. You know, I mean, the more we can ignite people's passion for live music, the more I have to gain in the middle market, you know? And, you know, don't even get me started on, you know, the church guys and what they have to go through regularly. The churches were probably some of the first people who went to silent stages, electronic drums, all direct input guitars, bass, keyboards, acoustic guitar, and their mixes are all in-ear monitors, which sounds really cool if you're at a church that can afford quality gear to make those things happen. But it is a point of frustration for an engineer who's at a church that doesn't have a budget to do that correctly, and he's having to jump through a bunch of hoops to try to make it work. You know, pulling out all the stops, using, you know, a lot of direct input, hardwired, in-ear monitor systems, or they're using some of the less expensive wireless stuff like the X5 stuff and that sort of thing. But there's just no easy, cheap way to do that correctly. You know, the biggest mistake I see guys make with in-ear monitors is they don't get really good quality, custom molded buds, earbuds, the things that go in your ears. We call them earbuds. Some people call them headphones. Headphones to me are over the ear. Earbuds are just little buds that go in your ears. They look like lima beans sitting in your ears. Everyone has seen people in the award shows, like the Country Music Awards or the Grammys or whatever, use those things. So you know what I'm talking about. My buddy, my bass player right now, is getting ready to spend some money, and he's like, should I buy a nice wireless system for $1,000, or should I buy some really good custom molded earbuds for $1,000? And I said, dude, by all means, buy the earbuds first. You can use a wired, you know, in-ear monitor rig for a while, you know, until you get to a place where you can buy a nice wireless system. He's not really moving around as much these days to really need wireless. He's not doing wireless with his bass. So I'm like, man, just create a little umbilical cord that goes up to your strap, put the unit on the back of your strap, and bam, you're done, you know, and you'll be just fine. You'll be happy. Spend the money on the buds, because that's really where it's at. But, you know, guys are like, well, man, you know, you're talking about $1,000 in buds and $1,000 for a nice wireless in-ear monitor system. That's $2,000. And the guy who will complain about that is the same guy who's probably sitting on $20,000 worth of Les Pauls, or $20,000 worth of Paul Reed Smith and Fender Twin amps, or vintage amps, or, you know, a room full of, you know, high-end Martin acoustics, you know, or like it just goes on and on and on. I regularly see guys that are playing $6,000, $8,000 DW drum sets, and they complain about spending $50 on a wired ear system, and, you know, $800 or $900 on some buds. Like, just cry like babies about it. And they're playing, you know, $8,000 or $9,000 drum set. You see the value there. The problem is when you spend all that money on in-ear stuff, it's not flashy. It's not something you can show off to anybody. It's just a tool that you need to do the job. You know, so it doesn't have, you know, the glitter and the glamour that a new drum set or a new guitar or something like that has. So it's a little bit of an anticlimactic buzzkill in that situation, you know, especially to put out $2,000 to do it right. But what's the alternative? You're going to keep using a wedge and keep being too loud on stage? You're going to say the same thing about the direct input modules like the Kempers and the Fractals and the Tonex and whatever. Like, oh, they're too much money and blah, blah, blah. Helixes. I see a lot of Line 6 Helix in my world. You know, man, it's so much money and all that. And it's like they're the same guys that are playing, you know, $3,000 Les Pauls, you know, or $1,500 Paul Reed Smiths. Or, you know, what? Like, come on, dude. You put your money in wherever you want to put your money in, especially if you're someone who's a weekend warrior and you got like a high-paying day job. You know, go shut up and just go buy the stuff and do it right. Like if you want to be relevant and continue to stay relevant and continue to have your band grow and be able to play a wide variety of rooms and a wide variety of volumes, this is the way you do it. Learn the technology. Learn how to set up, you know, a closed network for your Wi-Fi stuff. Learn how to set up an access point. Learn how to be fluid and flow with the workflow that Mixing Station offers. All those things take time and commitment and money. Then go into your monitors, get good buds, do all the things. If you do all those things, I'm telling you right now, you'll be much happier and you'll find that the stress level at your gigs will go way down. Hey guys, I just wanted to bookend this video with another little plug to subscribe to this channel. I think it's like, I don't know, 48% of you guys watching this video are not subscribed to the channel. You subscribing to the channel pushes us up in the rankings, and it manipulates the algorithms to our favor. The more you watch this video to the end helps that as well. The more you share this video on your social media pages or on other pages like Cover Band Central and some of the gear pages and stuff like that, if there's something that I'm saying that really resonates with you, share it with your band. You know, throw the video around the room at rehearsal, you know, or put it up on the big screen in the rehearsal space and sit there and take 30 minutes and watch the video. That stuff goes a long way in helping me have the resources to continue to bring this kind of content to you, especially on the free side of the channel. Because here's the thing, like I said, you know, earlier in the video, if you really dig what I'm doing here and you kind of see where I'm going and you can get behind the movement of just trying to educate people and to make the world a better place, one mix at a time, one show at a time, you know, one video of content telling you how to get to the next level at a time, really think about or pray about, you know, supporting this channel financially. Because for about the price of a Starbucks cup of coffee, you can be an insider. The insider video this week was about setting up Wi-Fi networks to Wi-Fi mix. And I've had a bunch of people on the public side ask for that information. But that's information that I've also been addressed with on the member side, you know. So those guys are always going to get first dibs. And the information and the videos that I do on the member side never go public. I may touch on that subject in another video or something like that on the public side, but to address that specific issue in a manner that I did today when I made that member video, it's not going to happen. You know, I am reserving that, and I'm trying to create value on the paid side of the channel so that when people get over there, they really feel like they're getting a lot of bang for their buck. The other thing is too that I didn't mention earlier in the video when we were plugging this was I make myself more readily available to paid members than I do non-paid members. There's not a day that goes by that I don't get at least 20 or 30, you know, shares of like the little baby turning up the guitar amp and crying when they say no and, you know, all that kind of stuff. Or someone who just legitimately comes to the table and asks me a question. You know, if they're a regular follower and they're interactive regularly, like over on Facebook or one of the other platforms, I'll probably give them a little bit of my time. If they're a paid member on any platform, they're going to bubble right to the surface, and I'm going to give them my undivided attention to the best of my ability as my schedule allows. So if there's, you know, specific things you'd like me to talk about, or if you'd like to just get in a one-on-one conversation with me, about how to get your band to the next level, or how to get your production company to the next level, how to do contracts, how to deal with liability insurance, how to deal with staging, because we do staging here at CLP Audio and Staging. You know, man, the members get inside access to all that. Not to mention, I regularly vlog over there, just letting you into my personal life and letting you into what's going on in the world of CLP Audio and Staging and what's going on in the world of J.R. Everhart, you know. There is value there, and the people who have joined the paid side have raved about how much they've enjoyed that content and how they've loved having an inside look at my world and what the nuts and bolts of that looks like. Plus, we do videos over there where we're just hanging out in the shop. I'll put a microphone on. I might be unpacking trucks. I might be working on gear or something, and we just kind of have a conversation. You know, I just kind of talk about whatever comes into my mind, you know, as I'm working on gear, or maybe I'm doing a basket replacement or a diaphragm replacement in a speaker, and we're talking about passive versus active, and all those conversations come up in that hang around the shop, you know, content. And that usually happens about once a month over on the member side. So there's value there. I hope you can see value in that. Thank you for your support. If you made it this far, you really are a trooper. You might as well join, because like 75% of the people don't even get to this part of the video. You know, my marketing people always say, well, bookend it, but make sure you have it at the beginning of the video too, because a lot of people don't make it to the end of the video. If you've made it this far in the video, you need to just go on over there, click on the link, and just become a $5 a month member, and just join the family. Because you obviously love what's going on here, and I love giving it to you. I love being accessible to you guys, and I love your support. Thank you. I'll see you next week.